We've seen something very unique in the lead up to XDefiant in terms of just the sheer transparency coming out of Ubisoft and more specifically Mark Rubin. And I've got a bit of a rant on that for you guys today, as I definitely think it is a very important topic. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more XDefiant content and just shooter content in general. And if you are interested in just general gaming as well, be sure to check out the new gaming channel. There is going to be a setup tour over on that channel at 1K subscribers. So be sure to go and check that out. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. So if you've been following any of my XDefiant content or even just following the game at all online, I'm sure you guys would have heard by now of Mark Rubin. Mark Rubin is the executive producer on XDefiant. He also did actually do a producer role on previous Call of Duty games, those being the old school Modern Warfare games. So he's been around quite some time. He's been involved in obviously some very big games. Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2 are like revolutionary shooters that were obviously huge at the time. And a fun fact as well, for those who didn't know, he is actually the guy on the cover of both Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2, the originals. So it is pretty funny to see that he is on the cover of Call of Duty and he's now taking all of that experience over to XDefiant. Now, this guy in the lead up to XDefiant has been absolutely amazing with his transparency. He's pretty much been tweeting all along the way, even doing like full-on blog posts and everything, talking about all the ins and outs of the game, talking about when we can expect certain things, talking about why certain things might or might not be happening. He's even done Twitter polls talking about, you know, what do we want to see in the game? And then that stuff has actually led to being in the game. For example, map voting, that was not in the initial build of the game. He put a tweet out sort of asking if that is something that people would be interested in. And the overwhelming vote was yes, and what do you know, it is now in the game. So he has been really good with transparency and just also like taking on feedback and actually listening to what people are saying. Even just this morning, recording this the day after the public test for XDefiant that went live last week, he is still tweeting out and pretty much replying to people's feedback on the game. Literally as I'm recording this, I'm seeing the notifications pop up on my phone that Mark Rubin has tweeted, and I've read a few of them and they're really interesting to read. So he has been just absolutely spot on with his transparency and just overall reception of feedback, which a lot of developers out there aren't really that good at. When people criticize their game, they often either just don't say anything in return or they'll kind of fight back against it. This has all been such a breath of fresh air. This is something that you just do not see in the gaming industry. It is a very like secretive industry where it's not, you know, the inner details are not really talked about all that much, at least not with us as players. Everything really is kept a secret, and a lot of the time we just kind of see a trailer, they announce a game, and then it's just radio silence until the next trailer and the next trailer, and then the game launches, and that's pretty much all that we know about games. We don't hear anything else other than that, and it is definitely very interesting to hear the actual inside workings of what goes into making a game, especially when it comes to a multiplayer game, because I think multiplayer games need that added layer of transparency. It's maybe not as important with a single player game because they generally do launch really well, and so I think us as players probably trust the single player devs a little bit more, that yeah, just give us what you want to give us. Most single player games feel very solid at launch, but multiplayer games, I think we all want to be involved in that, giving them feedback on what we want to see, because just when it comes to a multiplayer game, we definitely need a bit more input than what we need in a single player game. All of this stuff with Mark Rubin and just the overall transparency, it's made me realize just how much this needs to be the case for other video games. Like I said, not so much video games in general, it is more talking about the multiplayer aspect here, and especially the shooter genre. I think that is one area that this is absolutely terrible in. The secretive nature of gaming and, you know, the shooter genre, like I said, it is absolutely atrocious. Developers will just keep certain things from players, and we don't hear anything about the important stuff that directly affects us as players, and it is something that definitely needs to change. And this right here has proven that it can be done. I think this is a perfect example for developers out there to look at Mark Rubin and look what he's doing, and obviously just the team at Ubisoft in general, and realize that, okay, we can actually talk to our players and get feedback from them and sort of let them in a little bit to also show us, you know, why these things are taking so long or why something can't be done. Letting us in and showing us that also teaches us, and we might start to realize, okay, like that's fair enough that you can't do this or that, so we're going to give you some leeway there. Whereas when they don't tell us about those details, we don't understand what's going on, and therefore it's a lot easier for us to get kind of angry because we just have the question, why can't that be done, or why is this taking so long? And because there's no explanation, we think that is a very fair question to the developers themselves. They may just be thinking, oh, these guys have no idea what what they're complaining about. And so it's probably very frustrating for them as well. But if they just let us in and showed us why certain things are the way that they are, it would only benefit not only them, but also us as players. Now, don't get me wrong, I do get it in some cases. I think when it comes to like setting expectations and stuff, obviously they need to be very careful around that, because if you have someone who is too transparent, but they're maybe a little bit more optimistic. So for example, let's just say Mark Rubin kept saying like, oh, the game's going to launch this week, and then it just doesn't, then obviously that is a negative thing. If you get someone who is sharing this amount of information, but they're not sharing it factually, it's more like what they think and their opinions, that can obviously be a negative thing, because it might set our expectations too high on something. If Mark Rubin wasn't being so factual and was just saying, oh, I really think the game's going to launch next week, and then it doesn't, we're going to get annoyed by that. So there are obviously some cases where it is not a good idea. You need to be factual with the stuff that you're telling us. There's also the chance that obviously someone can make a big slip up that makes a billion-dollar company look bad. For example, if Mark Rubin said something that maybe pissed off some of the higher ups at Ubisoft, or he just said something that, you know, let's say he said the game is 100% launching in 2023 and then it doesn't, that obviously makes Ubisoft as a whole look bad as well. So I'd also get it from that perspective. And on top of that, the investors might not like that either, because obviously if this guy is going off and saying a bunch of stuff that is setting expectations too high and then it doesn't go that way, the investors might, you know, start to pull out their money. They might go, this isn't really working. There's the potential that I'm going to lose my money here, so I'm going to pull my money out. There goes all the funding for the game, and then the game dies, and it obviously can have negative impact. So I do get it in some cases, but I think when it comes to just generally being transparent and just telling people what's going on, as long as you're being A, factual, and B, just reasonable with what you're saying, you don't want to probably tell us every single detail, because that can lead to some negative things, like I said, then I honestly don't see how that transparency results in anything but a good thing. Overall, I just think that companies out there, like I said, mostly in the shooter genre and just multiplayer games in general, they really should be looking at XDefiant and Mark Rubin and sort of seeing what they're doing and seeing that it is a far better way to build trust and garner good communities. There's obviously a lot of toxicity in gaming. I'm not going to blame the toxicity on the devs, because obviously that is just down to people being dickheads at the end of the day. But I do also think some of that is on the developers not sharing enough, because a lot of people are toxic due to the fact that they don't know enough about the gaming industry. That is unfortunately just ignorant on their part, but it's not really their fault. We can't know everything about the game when they don't let us in there. And so if these companies actually shared a bit more with us, people might stop being toxic and sort of saying, oh, this game sucks, why are you guys so dumb, you don't know what you're doing? And instead they might look at the actual genuine explanations for why a game has been delayed or why this can't be added to the game. And if it's explained well enough, people might actually go, okay, that actually makes sense. I'm not going to be a dickhead about it. I'm just going to accept it and move on. Hopefully this whole thing brings on a bit of change in the gaming industry. Unfortunately, I don't think that will be the case. I don't think XDefiant's a big enough game that it's probably going to do anything like that. If this was Call of Duty doing this level of, you know, transparency, then maybe that would be the case, because there's such a big company and a big IP that maybe other companies out there would look at that and go, wow, that's really cool, we're going to start doing that too. But unfortunately, XDefiant's obviously a very small game right now, and I don't know if this will have the impact that I hope it does. But regardless, I thought it was a very interesting topic nonetheless. With that being said, I'm very keen to hear your thoughts on this as well, so be sure to leave them down in the comment section. Like I mentioned before, if you are new to the channel and you are interested in more XDefiant content, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications, and be sure to check out the new gaming channel as well, Sammy Boy Gaming, for all things big AAA games. With that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.